All right, problem 37, we're looking at a two-way table. All the students at a school answered yes or no to the two survey questions shown. Do you have a cell phone? Yes or no. Do you have an MP3 player? The same students responded to both questions. Complete the two-way frequency table that shows the correct totals for each data. So we add this way, that's 87. We add this way, that's 187. We add this way, that's 95. Add this way, we get 179. If we add this way, we get a total of 274 students in the survey. Let's just double check that this is also that. 87 plus 187, 274. Good. Okay. So we filled in the missing information in the table. What proportion, part B, what proportion of the students who own a cell phone also own an MP3 player? So what proportion of the students who own a cell phone? So how many students own a cell phone? If we look in the table, that's all the way across. These 57 and these 122, so the total is 179. Also own an MP3 player. So already we can look for those that have a denominator of 179. But this is because it's out of how many students? Out of 179. How many of them own an MP3 player? 57. So 57 out of 179. These are the students who own MP3 out of all who own a cell phone. All right, so 57. Okay. Categorize the given proportions based on the table. So remember, joint relative is a joint frequency over a total. Marginal relative is a marginal over the total. And a conditional is a joint over a marginal. And also remember that these are joint frequencies. Because they join two things together, the answers to these two questions, they join them together. These are marginal because they're on the margins or on the sides, just like the margin of this page is the side of this page. Okay, so let's look at these. 57 out of 87. The 57 is a joint frequency. The 87 is a marginal frequency, so this is a joint over a marginal. That's conditional. 179, I'm looking at B now. 179, that's a marginal frequency. And the 65, wait, 65 out of 179. This is a typo. I guess I'd call that conditional, but it's not a real proportion that's meaningful in this context. 30 out of 95, this is definitely conditional. I think this should have been 65 out of 274, which would have made it joint relative. Okay, lots of typos in this exam. All right, anyway. Which of the following are possible interpretations of the proportion 30 out of 87 in the context of this table? So the 30 out of 87, this is the 87 is all the people who own an MP3 player. The 30 is the ones who don't own a cell phone. So the proportion of the students in the sample that own an MP3 player, well, that would be 87 out of the total 274. The proportion of the students in the sample that don't own a cell phone, that would be 95 out of 274. The proportion of the students in this sample that own an MP3 player but no cell phone, the key here is the proportion of the students in this sample. That's the out of 274. Let's see, I'm going to have to read this a little bit more carefully. But no cell phone. So the proportion of the students in the sample that own an MP3 player, that's 87. And those that have no cell phone, that's 30. So this is 30 out of 87. Whereas for D, the portions that don't own an MP3 player, that's 187. Own a cell phone, that's 122. So we're asked for 30 out of 87, that's going to be C.